Would you love me even if I died? Would you prop me up in my chair and let me watch the nightly news even though I'm dead? Anyways, speaking of being dead, whew, I want to do a series. I don't know how many. It might be like 100-part series. Who the fuck knows? But whew, I want to do a series. Now, I had heard about this before, and I looked into it. I was watching YouTube videos on it and whatnot, but I sort of got back into it, and it's the DMT stuff, the drugs, which is ironically still legal. I don't know why that's legal. You can't smoke pot, but you can smoke that stuff. Okay, whatever. But as I was listening to some of their trip stories, quote unquote, whatever they're called, it made me start thinking about my own near-death experience when I was a kid. And now I did a series a long time ago, but I never posted it to YouTube or anything. I may have to dig those out. I don't even know where the hell they are, but now I understand how the mind works, that when you conjure up memories, you start adding in pieces and filling in gaps. I get that, but there was definitely a few similarities to my near-death experience and what these guys are talking about, as far as their trips go. Anyways, let me get into my own experience, because technically I've had a couple. I mean, how the fuck did it happen more than once? But whatever. But I had a legitimate near-death experience. I didn't know what it was as a kid. Looking back at it now, it's I know exactly what it was. Because actually there was 3 main events. 2 of which ironically had to do with the dentist, which is, disturbing enough as it is going to the dentist. And why is the dentist so goddamn archaic? Holy fuck, are you kidding me? The shit that they do to your fucking mouth is just, it's barbaric. It's fucking barbaric. I mean, it's like Dark Ages in your mouth. It's are you kidding me? Drills and hooks and Jesus. Whatever. The first is when I was a kid, which I'll get into later. The other was when I had 3 wisdom teeth removed. And they basically put me under. They put a needle in me. That was a very interesting experience. Now, anybody who's been under before, it's one of those things where they put the needle in, and they're count backwards from 10, and I want 10, 9, and that was it. I was out. It was instantaneous. And I didn't wake up for at least 45 minutes. Or what felt like, it could have been an hour, it could have been 10 minutes, who the hell knows. I will say that my jaw was all fucked up. It was sore. They're probably fucking me or something, or face fucking me or something. The old doctors taking turns and shit, fucking me in the mouth. Who knows? But my whole jaw was it's because they had to get way up in there, because that shit's way the fuck up in there. So that was kind of it was an interesting experience too, because it literally just goes black, brr. Now, if I had not had the experience when I was a child, I would say, there is no life after death. There is nothing out there. It goes black, that's it. Now, I don't know, there could have been dreams of some kind. I've heard stories of people who go under and they're crying and things happen and they say stuff and, I don't know. I don't remember anything. I wasn't told anything. So to me, I went black and woke up. Almost like I fell asleep. But it was a hard sleep. It was one of those I can't really explain it, but It was a deep sleep. And I was aware that when I woke up, and I was still groggy, but I was aware that time had passed. I didn't know how much. I still don't even to this day. Because my mother took me. And because I was fucked up when I got out. I was like staggering around, like, oh, you know, that's some crazy shit. So that was it was kind of an interesting experience too. But that was probably the lesser of the three. The second came, can't remember. I had to have another tooth removed, and they gave me gas. And holy shit, I had a bad reaction to that gas. Holy fuck! When I say I almost died, it's not an exaggeration, it's not a joke. I literally almost died. I stopped breathing. It was to the point the nurse said to the doctor, to the dentist, he's not breathing. I heard her say, he's not breathing. She was over my left shoulder and she said, he's not breathing. The doctor's over my right shoulder. And the doctor is like, you gotta breathe. You gotta breathe. And I'm sitting there, I'm hearing them, I'm acknowledging them in my mind, but it was so euphoric. It was like, I didn't want to leave that. Now, I didn't go anywhere, but it was just like, everything felt so good. It was like, I did not want to, and it wasn't like a hippie kind of like, yeah, man. It wasn't that kind of good. Or maybe it was, but this was just, it was like, wow. Like, I had never felt this good in my entire life, and I did not want to leave that state. Okay. And I can't explain it, but it was like, I had to make a decision. Do I want to keep living, or do I want to die? Like, sometimes you see in these shows where it's like, almost like Padme, like she kind of lost the will to live. It literally was like that. It was totally like that. And in my mind was still working fine, but my body was like, oh, yeah, like a jellyfin just laying there. And I said to myself, do I want to die right now? And I was like, no, I don't want to die right now. But I had to think about it for a second or two. Now, I don't even know how long it had been. It was at least long enough for the nurse to notice it and the doctor to be like, hey, you gotta start breathing. You gotta start breathing. He said it like 3 or 4 times. You gotta breathe. You gotta keep breathing. Keep breathing. Take deep breaths. And they finally took the mask off. And like, you gotta breathe. And I'm hearing them and I'm like, no. Because I was focused on something. It was like, my mind was focused in front of me. Not necessarily the wall, but it was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was like the wall had opened up, but it wasn't like a trip. It was more like there was something more, and it was like I just wanted to be in that place. And euphoric is, I don't even think euphoric is a strong enough word. But like I said, I had to make the decision. Do I want to continue to breathe and go on with my life, or do I want to die? Because for almost a split second, I paused and I was like, no, I'm good right where I am. And then all of a sudden I decided, no, I have to go back. Now, that concept of having to go back plays out into my near-death experience, which I'll get into later, but like I said, I had to think about it and then determine, yes, I'm going to continue to go on. And then when I started breathing on my own again, it was like I snapped back, literally snapped back like a rubber band. Like if you like little kid do that with his sister, like pull a rubber band, go snap her with it, but the thing breaks in the middle, like snaps him in the face. That's exactly what it was. It just literally snapped back in my own face, and I was like, brr. Like my soul just said, hey, fuck you, right back into my body, and was like, fuck you. And I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. I was like, I literally couldn't catch my breath. And he's like, just relax, take your time, breathe deep. And I was like, breathe deep, fuck you. I mean, I wasn't saying that because I couldn't speak. And I started having a panic attack because before it was, I was euphoric and I was just like, just sitting there, just like, and not even breathing, just holy crap. And then all of a sudden, once my consciousness was like, hey, fucker, you gotta breathe. If you're gonna live, you gotta breathe. And I was like, it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. I will never go under it again. I will never take gas again. Ever. So, anyways, before I get into the near-death experience, which I haven't been thinking about that specifically, which is why I'm kind of putting it off, because it's one of those things where you have to kind of relive it, and there's so much to the story, and yes, sometimes you do have to fill in a little bit of the gaps, and yes, you have to fill it in with imagination. I understand that. So I want to be clear about it without putting in my own personal interpretation of it, if that makes any sense. Even though it was technically my own personal interpretation, but whatever. But anyways, you see these videos where people are on YouTube and they're talking about DMT and their drug trip, and it starts off where they're talking about how the edges of everything, like you look around the room, and the edges, they start to kind of blur, and you see these shapes and these like polygonal patterns, and everything is just swirling around. I vaguely remember a little of that, but my focus wasn't so much on getting to the other side as it was me being there, because I completely remember a lot. Well, I shouldn't say completely, but I remember a lot of what was there at the time. I do remember the tunnel. I remember that. I mean, there is that tunnel of light. I mean, it is walk toward the light. I mean, it is one of those things. It's like this. I can't even describe it. It's like, I mean, the only way I could describe it for somebody to understand is like if you take a picture and then the four corners are kind of dark, but there's like this swirling pattern that goes. It's like a tunnel. You could go into the screen, kind of a deal. That's kind of what it felt like. Although I can't say that the outer edges were completely dark, but you get that funnel shape and that swirly pattern, and it's just like light and things and just shapes and stuff, and it was, I don't know, it was weird. I'm not gonna lie, because what happened for me as a kid is I was born with spina bifida, which meant that I had problems. Okay, I had physical problems, and there were potential learning disabilities, so on and so forth. Well, I was at a point, they had me on drugs when I was a kid. I'm talking like preschool, so we're talking 3, 4. I think was it 5 or 6 when you actually go to kindergarten. So it was at least 4. I was 4 years old when that happened, give or take 4 or 5. 3, 4, 5, somewhere in it. Whatever the fuck, who cares? And what happened was, when I went to school, I was having behavioral issues because I'm on these fucked up drugs and shit. And what happened was the teachers got upset because I would climb up on stuff and not come down. Like, I remember they had these in the back, they had like this big cubby area where we'd go in and we'd put our coats and stuff, and none of the other rooms of that school had an area like that. Most of them had the area like up front. Ours was almost like a little nook in the back, and we had to like go through a door. And what would happen is I would go in there and I would climb up on the cubby thing, or I did one time. I shouldn't say I did it all the time, but I climbed up there one time, and I wouldn't come down, and teachers got pissed, and they basically threatened my mother of, you gotta take him to the doctor because he's got behavioral problems, ADD or whatever, PhD, whatever the fuck it is. And they gave me, I want to say Ritalin. It was one of those famous drugs of like the early 80s that they would give kids that would fuck the kid completely up. I can't remember the name of it, but I want to say Ritalin was one of them, and something else. I don't remember what it was. Mixed with whatever else they were giving me. Adderall, maybe. It was something. It was one of those famous, like, you've heard it before. It's you know, it's not like, you know, whatever, vagina D or some fucking thing like that. Yeah, it wasn't one of these stupid names that you hear today. It's got all the side effects and shit, and the side effects are worse than what you're taking it for. You know, you got a pimple on your ass, and this vagina D, you know, gives you rectal bleeding and stomach ulcers and brain hemorrhages just to, you know, take a pimple off your ass. This stuff was like potent shit, and for a 3-year-old, it's fucked up. Anyways, the first time we got home and I took it, I may have taken it one other time, but this one particular time, I think it was, I don't know if it was mixed with another pill or something. I don't know. Could have been a Flintstone vitamin. I don't know. It was mixed with something. I crashed. I mean, we're talking like face down, ass up on the couch. She got a picture of that old brown shitty ass couch that smelled like dog ass. Okay. And because I'm in the living room. Oh my God, I remember the living room. We had these shades that were like over the window. These big long curtains that were over the window, and it was like really dark in there. Even on a good day, it was dark. And we had that stupid wallpaper that looked like a forest. It was like actual forest of wallpaper. Keep in mind, this is the 70s, 80s. And no, we didn't live in a trailer, so that's just weird when I think about it. But yeah, there was like this forest motif where it's like you see trees, and it was like almost like a fall pattern where the leaves were kind of different. They were like orangish color. So the whole place had like this orange vibe to it, which was just creepy in itself, but hey, it's where we lived, you know. Anyways, I sat on the couch. The couch was on the other side of the room. And I remember my mother was in the kitchen. She's sitting over there by where the toaster used to be. And she had this little mini black and white TV. And I think she was watching Days of Our Lives. And for some reason, she was home. I think she was home to take care of me, actually. Or we had just gotten back from the doctor or something. It was something where she took... No, she did. I think she took a half a day to take me to the doctor. And when she came home, she had like a tuna sandwich or something. And she's sitting there. It was like a half a day or something for her. So it was probably around 11 in the afternoon. 10:30, 11:30, somewhere in there. And she was going to go, you know, get some lunch and then go back to work. Well, she gave me the pills. And I think we had just gotten back from the doctor or something to that effect. And I literally went in on the couch, laid down, and like I said, we're talking literally face in the cushion, ass in the air. Like I was just like somebody like bashed me over the head, and I just kind of crumpled onto the couch. I mean, you got to picture that. A 3-year-old kid just crumpled on the couch. And that's how it started. I don't think I was... I can't confirm that, but I definitely think I had stopped breathing at some point. And this wasn't... I don't think these weren't drugs that give you hallucinations. I legitimately had a near-death experience. Like my mother, afterwards, she saw me in the state that I was in, and she like rushed me to the hospital. That's how bad it was. So it wasn't good. She found me is what happened, and it was just it was pretty fucked up. Anyways, I don't want to get into all that just yet. So anyways, back to this DMT stuff. So they got the light tunnel that you go through, which I did see. What else is it? Apparently they claim that essentially if you take 2 hits, you have to take the third, sometimes 4 or 5, depending on your tolerance and how much you're taking. You have to take the puff, if you're doing the DMT, to break over to the other side. And it's kind of cool because some of the stuff that they say, like if you take a couple puffs and you look at yourself in the mirror, it literally looks like your face is being pixelated, but like really super sharply. Almost like the Matrix is coming into focus. And it looks more real than, real, so to speak. And if you take like that 3rd or 4th puff of that shit, you break through, you go through the tunnel, but then you break through to the other side. Now, these people are seeing, now I've heard it explained as machine gnomes. I don't know what that means. I can't tell you what that means. It sounds creepy. Some guys referred to them as like jesters, court jesters, was like flipping him off and just kind of like teasing him. Reminds me of the term Loki, kind of mischief and bullshit. Sounds like demons actually. Now this one guy, he you can look it up on YouTube. It's a big well received video. He was talking about how these beings spoke to him, but they weren't actually speaking. Like when they did speak, it was this weird like blah, 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 that kind of shit. No, I don't know, but they spoke to him almost in song, which is interesting if you take into consideration, let's say God, when God spoke the world into existence, the vibration, the tone and the vibration of what he was saying when he spoke created things. He created the world as far as the Bible goes. And if these fuckers are doing that shit, they're actually speaking things into existence. And the key to what was going on is don't be amazed at what you're seeing. Just do what we're doing. Is what he says. So he tries to, speak something, and he starts to create stuff. And then once he does, it's like, oh, see ya, time to go away. Time to go home. And that's a key thing, that when you're leaving this place, someone will say something to you. To me, it was, okay, it's time to go. That's what was said to me. It's time to go, it's time to wake up. And boom, I woke up, and my mother was standing there. So, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see these dudes. I didn't see these people. And it sounds very, very much like Lucifer, because if you know anything about the Bible, Lucifer was basically in charge. He was basically the song ministry. So they were building shit with their mouth. Apparently, they were bringing things into fruition, singing and shit. So I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see these dudes. Now for me, I was greeted by, and I didn't really see his face all that much. I didn't look up, and when the times this person was looking at me, I felt literally like a kid. Like he's like 8 feet tall, and I'm like 2 feet tall. That's what it felt like. It wasn't like kid to adult. Well, maybe it was to a degree. I'm not saying he was 8 feet tall, but it just felt like he was like super big, like just, but not like wide, big. I could tell that this individual person was very narrow, very thin, but he was tall. I mean, compared to me, again, that was my perception was as a child. So I didn't actually like look him in the face, but I could tell that he had on like a robe, and I don't know. It's weird thinking back about it. Cause you gotta understand, thinking about it, going back to it in my mind is just, I don't know. Anyways, this person, this guy, it was a guy. He was very concerned. He was very caring. I felt very comfortable with him. He showed me around. It's what I vaguely remember. It's like those weird paintings where it's like there's just people doing stuff, and there's like a floating island in the sky kind of a thing, or there's like just weird like. Now the trippy people say they want to talk about how there's like pyramids and stuff like that. It was kind of that similar concept, but not exactly. For me, it was different. I didn't see pyramids, although there were buildings and structures. There was stuff, and it was just, but not like that. Because some people on the DMT and different acid trips and whatnot, they're not acid, but those types of trips. They'll see pyramids, unfinished pyramids. They'll see basically Lord of the Rings. They'll see a bunch of manitars and shit, like half this, half that. They'll see elves and gnomes and shit. I didn't see none of that, but I can attest to the concept. The concept was the same. Like. It was the same place. From what they're describing, even though I didn't see any of that specific stuff, I can attest to what they were saying from my own personal experience. It was similar to that. Now, I was in a place that was very light and bright and like literally that idea of angels with harps in the clouds, and it was kind of like that, but it was like this surreal I don't know. I can't really explain it. Think like almost like the Mayan pyramids and shit, where they have like this big open area, and there's like these buildings, and it was that kind of thing, but it wasn't. They weren't like gray stones. They were more like, I almost want to say almost like a brownish color, like a clayish color, and. I didn't pay attention to a lot of that stuff, I admit, because basically I was a kid. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, architecture. Yeah, I like that, I was just like, okay, what's going on? Because, I don't know, it was like a weird dream almost. But there was more to it than that. This was real. I could tell it was real even as a kid. So I was following this guy around. And I want to say he did have shoulder length hair, give or take. It wasn't like super long. But it was shoulder length ish. Either that or it was part of the robe that was kind of bunched up in the back. But he didn't have like short hair. It wasn't like super short. It wasn't like your Bible thumper short, cropped at the ears. It wasn't like that. Maybe think like with the exception of the emu bullshit, think maybe Carl from Walking Dead. A little bit kind of like disheveled, but not like... It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like that out of control, but it was just... I could tell he had longer hair. Again, not like hippie longer hair, but, whatever. And I followed behind him, and I remember he had like these broad shoulders, but he wasn't like super big. If you get what I mean, it wasn't like a football player, more like a basketball player. In a way, kind of like he felt very tall and very. But again, I was basically looking up, like I wasn't even like my face was like, I don't know. It's like I was looking up and it was like, And he was talking to me as he's leading me around this place. And he's showing me stuff. And for some reason, I want to say, and this could be me just putting it in there, but I vaguely remember either asking or he mentioned it or something about my grandfather who, he hadn't died yet, but I vaguely remember talking to him, or not to him, but about him, I want to say it was my grandfather, but it was something. It was somebody who was related to me, and for some reason I want to say my grandfather, but again, I don't want to add to that because I don't want to piece something together. Like maybe it wasn't the grandfather, maybe it was one of my. Really, the only person that was close to me was my aunt, and I don't think it was her. I want to say my grandfather, but my grandfather was still alive. He didn't die until like 93, 94. Although it could have been my other, I don't know, something, and it was a mention of a family member, and it felt like my grandfather. That's all I can say. Or it had that kind of grandfather, elderly kind of feel to it. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But like everybody was kind of just doing their own thing, and they weren't really acknowledging me. It was just like old hat. And the only one who was acknowledging me was this one dude, and he's taking me through this place. And as we get to like this big temple, I can't even describe it. And again, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just kind of like, okay, I was like a kid, like, okay, wherever you want me to go. I was like if a teacher said, come here, and pointed with her, beckoned with her finger, kind of a deal. That's kind of what it was. And I was like, okay, whatever, and just hope I'm not in trouble, kind of a deal. That's what it was, and I really wish I had paid attention more. But we get into this room, and it felt like a courtroom. It felt like something you'd see at like like a local courtroom, basically, like your local. I don't know, almost like the House chamber in Washington, where they do all the bills and stuff. It felt like that. And we walked in, and keep in mind, he's like this shield in front of me. Like, I see him. I don't see a lot around me. I see just him and his broad but slender physique. And we go into this room, and it's just light. Like, this light is emanating from in front of him. And I had this feeling, even as a kid, that it was, I don't want to say God, but it felt like God. Like, he was talking to somebody who was he was talking to the judge. He was talking to somebody who was very important. And it was all this light, like, coming. You got a picture, like, a dude standing in front of a huge light. You can see the light around him. Like the light is encompassing, almost like coming around and hugging him, and it's like he's shielding me in front of this light. Or like if I had seen the light would have just completely decimated me, is what it felt like. And they start talking about me, my well-being, and the judge is like, no, fuck this guy. And obviously it wasn't like that brutal, but it was like, no, he's not supposed to be here, blah blah blah. And the guy said to the judge, I use those terms. Now keep in mind, I was not a Christian. I don't know anything about the Bible. I'm 3 years old. What the fuck? I mean, what do you know about the Bible at 3 years old? Even if you grew up in a Christian family, what do you know about the Bible? We weren't Christian people. My parents were vague Catholics. That's about it. So it wasn't like I was indoctrinated, like I went to Sunday school, oh, Jesus and God will be your judge and blah, 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 blah. It was none of that. None. We didn't watch religious program. I didn't think we had a Bible in the house. It was none of that stuff. So when this person who's in front of me, in front of this light, he basically is listening to the judge, and the judge is like, no, He's done this, he's done that, blah, blah, blah. He's just basically judging me. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, crap, what's going on? I'm not really looking around because you don't see much. Now, I could see a little bit off, like way over to my shoulder, and of each shoulder, like I could look and kind of see a little bit of the room. But everything in front of the guy was just blinding white light. So, like, if we had turned around, like, you'd see the outdoors and stuff, and it was kind of like a grassy area, kind of farmlandish in a way, but not like super. Everything felt kind of grayish to me. There was like a grayish tone to it, but there was this bright, vibrant light to it as well. It was a weird thing. Like the structures were kind of dull, but everything else around it was vibrant. So I don't know if you get what I mean by that. But anyways, so the guy standing in front of me says, I can't remember the words, but he basically said, like, I hear what you're saying, I get what you're saying, but I want him to be here. And the judge is like, okay, fine. Have it your way, kind of a deal. And then, just then, the dude turns to me, looks at me, and says, it's time to go, time to wake up. It was, I can't describe it any more than that. It was insane, but I don't know. You gotta understand, I'm like working this through my fucking head here because I don't know. It was as insane, but like I didn't want to leave. I did not want to leave there. But I mean, I think part of me did want to leave. I was like, I wanted to be there, but I also want to kind of go back to my toys, if that made sense. Because there was still that, like, I still want to live my life kind of a deal. But yeah, like I said, it was like the judge was basically judging me and saying, going through a laundry list of stuff that I've done, stuff that I was, again, 3 years old. How long is that list? It seemed to be pretty long. Okay. But then the dude who, I mean, basically, if you picture Jesus, essentially, that's the picture, Now, I don't want to say that Jesus looks like the images and the paintings that we see. I'm not saying he necessarily looks like that, but I could say it's kind of close. But again, I didn't really get a look at his actual face. But I did kind of get a look at, again, his shoulders. It's something. I mean, you gotta understand, like a kid. Like imagine if you're sitting on your knees looking up at somebody who's like really tall. That's kind of what it was. Now I wasn't obviously on my knees, but I was like I said, I was a kid, so I was kind of lower, like physically lower than him, and he was just like, he just felt like his presence was huge. It was like, but like for him, he was not big like me, not like a football player, like a refrigerator built like a brick shit house. Oh, I guess in a way he sort of was built like a brick shit house, but not in the typical like super wide extra chest, extra root, like you like if you get shirts and t-shirts and shit, you need to get like the extra big size because you're just so bulky. Okay, he didn't look like Lou Ferrigno. He didn't look like a football player. It was just because I'll never forget. I will not forget that seeing him from behind and just. Like, he literally defended me, and it was like, I thought that was so cool. Even at 3 years old, I was like, that's pretty awesome that, I don't know who this guy is. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Yet he's defended me. He's like, no, I want him here. Almost like I was chosen, like he was picking me out and said, no, I want this. And the judge literally 180'd right after he said that. I was like, okay, cool. It was like, I don't know. And then later years when I became a Christian and you learn about stuff like that, like we're elect, so on and so forth, and God will judge us, and it's the blood of Christ who washes away our sins and shit. So there was that stuff in there, and it was so cool because, again, I'm like 4 years old. How the fuck does a 4-year-old even grasp any of that stuff? But yet I'm watching it in my head, and oh my God, it was so cool but so weird at the same time. I mean, I wish I could, because you gotta understand, this is almost 40 years ago. So, like, I have the vision in my head, and it's like I can't explain it. But it does look like a lot of those weird-ass paintings you see, like those 16th century paintings and whatnot. Oh my God, I just wish I could explain it. That's the problem. It's like, and this is the problem that the dopers have too. They cannot explain what they see, and you see stuff, and it's like it's not tangible. It's like it's not real, but it's more real than anything that's here now. Like I tap on that, it I don't know. It's I don't know. I can't even, because it's like, who built that shit? Who built those pyramids if you're a doper? Who built this temple or whatever it was we were in? Who built that shit? And where were we? We were definitely in because the whole atmosphere was, because you got to picture not having a body and having that euphoric, you don't pain, basically. There's no pain. Like, you're standing there, all of a sudden your foot hurts, or you're standing there, your nose gets a little stuffy. There's none of that. There's no hindrance to how you feel. Your body, because you gotta understand, there's like millions and millions and millions and billions and trillions of freaking nerve endings that are like, it acts like a little asshole. The little pinky toe acts like an asshole. Goddamn, my pinky toe hurts, So, there was none of that. So, having a disembodied spirit, if you will, and that's exactly what it felt like. Like, I want to say I vaguely remember hands, but I don't remember feet, if that makes any sense. Like, I felt like I could do stuff, but I was more floating, like just gliding across the, and the other people, everybody was kind of wearing robes and stuff, so you couldn't really see their feet. I mean, I assume they did. I don't know. Because there was something about it. It was something I'm trying to remember, and like I said, I don't want to put my own imagination into it, but there was something, because it was that moment when he was referring to a loved one, like somebody that I knew, or somebody that was a part of my family, and it's like, they're not here right now, but they love you, or something. It was something to that effect. Like, they're not at this place here, they're off someplace else. And it was like, and I don't know who it was or why it was, but like I said, nobody there recognized me. Like, there was no fanfare. It wasn't like, and there may have been to a degree, but there was, like, when we're getting closer to the judge part, everybody was kind of doing their own thing, and I was just going under the radar. It almost felt like people were coming up saying, hey, how you doing, to the other guy, and then just like, oh, I'm here with so and so, and they're like, oh, that's nice, and they kind of walked off. That's how it felt. There was no like, hey, good to be here, glad to be here, blah blah blah. Because I was under the impression I wasn't supposed to be there. That was the whole point of what it was. I was not supposed to be there. I wasn't deserving to be there, and and it's like they ignored me in a way until this person said, but I want him here. And then it was like everything kind of just went bloop. But again, I mean, I was 4 years old, dude. I was 4 years old on Ritalin. I mean, what the fuck? And I had passed out on the couch. And I don't know if any of it was real. I really don't. I honestly don't. But the idea that I've had this vision or this experience, and then you listen to other people who have very, very similar experiences, it's completely insane, dude. It's completely insane that random people can have the same experience. Now, I've heard some people who had near-death experiences who the lights just go out, that's it. I've heard some where they've gone and they've literally been raped by demons and shit. I mean, it's crazy, but there's too many similarities of random people. There's somebody who went through it myself. This isn't just like, oh, I'm doing it for a YouTube video, ha ha ha. You know, oh, there's ghosts in my house. Ooh, look at that. The little box over there moved, which if it did, it would creep me the fuck out, by the way. But whatever. I'm looking at you, box. Fuck you. Don't you even move. Well, it fell the other day, and that's, I mean, whatever. But anyways, whatever. God, I don't know, man. I really wish I could explain it. I wish I could just, oh my God, I wish you could see what I see in my head. Now, there's only bits and pieces of it left. Okay, there's the story collectively, like, there's snippets, there's moments where it's like, I remember this, I remember that, and then everything in between is just, and I'm trying not to fill it in with my own imagination, because I could. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong per se, but it's definitely not as accurate as it should be, and I don't want to do that. But the things that I do clearly remember, I remember the tunnel of light. I remember the area, because it literally looked like something from, God, I don't know, like those paintings where you see people and they're like, what are those called? Glenn Beck wore them at one time. Oh, what are those outfits called? Those, Clark wore this shit in European Vacation, where he's up there dancing. Lederhosen and shit like that, with the little straps and the little boots and shit. That's what it felt like. It felt like something like that. Like you'd be in that kind of a setting where it's like, you know, and you're wearing that goofy ass outfit. That's what it felt like. The area, the land, the I don't know. But now picture that with almost like a floating island, like a grassy little island, and there's animals and stuff, and it's just, that's kind of what it felt like this surreal paradise, if you will. Although, I don't know, paradise really, in the bit that I remember, I didn't really feel like it was a paradise per se, because like when I think of paradise, I think of like waterfalls, and although there was stuff like that, but it was more like, if I were to think about, okay, what would a paradise be? Like, what would be the Garden of Eden kind of a deal? I'd think, you know, this bright, vibrant colors, these greens, and these just beautiful colors. It didn't seem like that to me, from my perspective. It did not seem that way. No, the dude was giving off kind of a light himself. Kind of a glow. So, it could have been, because I'm behind him, that glow could have tainted the colors. I don't know, I'm adding to that. That's my own perspective. That's my own thought on the situation, that maybe that's what it was. Because it was like there was moments where it felt like, if I looked around, it felt like just vibrant. But when I'm looking at him and I'm seeing the stuff like around his like outer frame, it felt less colored somehow. I don't know, I don't want to get into that, because, like I said, I don't want to add to it. But it had like this dull feeling. Certain parts of it were kind of dull, but there were other parts that were just vibrant and like, you know, it was like the colors just smacked you right in the dick. But then there were other parts that were just kind of dull and kind of normal. See, that's the point. It's normal color, not so, but it looked completely dull compared to the other stuff. So it's like, okay, you got like a normal color, a typical base color, and then everything else is just like smacking a dick bright. So when you look at it, you're like, man, that's kind of dull in comparison. Not that it was dull per se. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm kind of going in circles here, but I'm trying to work it out and trying to like glean more shit from it, because it was a legitimate, unique fucking experience. I'm not gonna lie. And then I hear these things from like these hippies and shit, and they're doing drugs and stuff, and they're having these trips, and they're going to some place, and it's like, I don't know, man, because like I said, I can attest to the way they describe what some of that looks like. Now, it wasn't like all like if you go on YouTube right now and you type in like DMT experience or something to that effect, they'll show like these colors, and they'll swirl around the screen with this ambient music, you know, kind of shit. There's all these colors, and they're just like morphing in together. There wasn't a lot of that. The tunnel part was like that, but when you got to the other side, it was not like that to me. But I do understand, and it's kind of goes back to what I was saying about the colors being slightly dull, is that the outer rim, the outer edges of everything felt like they were very, like, they felt kind of like that, where it was like, they're kind of glowy, they're kind of just unique, and like, oh, I really cannot put it into freaking words, and that pisses me off. And it's like, there's a reason I keep going over it again and again and again. It's like I'm trying to put it into words that just aren't there. Imagine like a frame of a photo, and the frame itself is kind of giving off this like glowy little, you know, like if you backlit it, it's kind of like that. So it's like the outer perimeter is like really bright, but the painting inside maybe isn't as, you know, maybe depending on the colors you use, it was kind of dull. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. That's almost exactly what I'm trying to say. It's not that the painting itself is dull, but the outer perimeter, like the outline of it, is just so much more vibrant that it makes everything else inside, you know, in the middle of it, look kind of like, you know. And everything kind of felt like that. People had like this aura glow around them, but not like crazy. It wasn't like, oh, you can't see and it's blinding you. But like they were more, the people stood out a little bit more than, let's say, the grass or the mountain, or not mountain, but like the hillside, or, you know, it was kind of like that. So when you look at the people, they're like bright and vibrant, but the grass is kind of like normal color. And it wasn't like super bright. But then, if you look just at that, it was I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it, and oh my god. It's irritating because like I'm literally sounding like these hippies who were trying to explain this shit after their trip, and it just, I know what they're saying. It's like, because one of the funny things about it is, you know anything about drugs, and I've taken overdose of Vicodin and shit, and I watched the old woman. She took an overdose right before she died. I don't know what it was she was taking. But it's one of those things where you sound incoherent, but in your minds you're completely coherent. You're like, why are they not understanding what I'm saying? I am speaking clearly, and they are not getting it, and they're treating me like I'm an idiot. And all the while you're talking blah, 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 blah. Like, I remember the old woman when because she was dying of cancer, that last night, whatever she had taken, I know she took too much of it or whatever, but like Jean was down there, Dale T was down there, and they were really worried about her. And She basically walked, and Jean had like her hand on her shoulder, like helping her around. And my mother says, I have to pull out this drawer so I can sit down. And I know what she meant. It's like she wants to pull this out because there's something in there and she wants to sit down and look into her. But she said, I want to pull out this drawer so I can sit down. And Jean's like, no, you can't sit on that. And my mother was getting, I could totally tell she was getting frustrated. She's like, no, I need to sit here. And Jean's like, you can't sit there. You got to get a chair. And once we got the chair, she was fine, because whatever what she was looking for was in that cupboard over the desk. So it's like, I know what that's like, experiencing that personally, and experiencing it and seeing my mother do that shit. It was like, you know, I get it. Like your mind is clear. You know exactly what you're trying to say, but the words are just not coming out. And it's kind of how I'm feeling right now, even though I'm not on any fucking drugs, and it pisses me off because I'd rather be on the drugs personally. But I am completely convinced that there is something else out there. There is an afterlife. I am completely convinced of that. I am completely 100% convinced of that. Because I don't know. Anyways, I've got a very limited battery life, and this is probably going to end at some point. So if it just craps out, that's what happened. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to end this. I think I'm going to do another clip of this after this freaking battery charges. I'm tired of this damn battery, dude. Oh my god. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I think I might continue this. I might do a series on this. Whatever. Anyways, that's it.